بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. It is Monday, the 8th of August 2022. And in our series Reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 346. And we are discussing chapter 2, verse 102 of the Holy Quran. Generally, as you know, that we've been looking at the roots of the words of a verse, and then we see how it's used in various places in the Holy Quran. But today I thought because it's a long verse, we will look at um, the teaching, the summary of what this is trying to tell us. These broadcasts are brought to you by LASER, the Lahore Ahmadiyya School of Education in Religion, and which is, a branch of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement or Ahmadiyya Anjuman Islam. So today I will recite the whole verse and its translation. In fact, in translation, I'll give you the translation of the previous verse as well. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان وما كفر سليمان ولكن الشياطين كفروا يعلمون الناس السحر وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت وما يعلمان من أحد حتى يقولا إنما نحن فتنة فلا تكفر فيتعلمون منهما ما يفرقون به بين المرء وزوجه وما هم بالضارين به من أحد إلا بإذن الله ويتعلمون ما يضرهم ولا ينفعهم ولقد علموا لمن اشتراه ما له في الآخرة من خلاق ولبئس ما شروا به أنفسهم لو كانوا يعلمون. And when there came to them a messenger from Allah, verifying that which they have, a party of those who were given the book threw the book of Allah behind their backs as if they knew nothing. This is the verse, translation of the verse that precedes the one that I have recited. And they follow what the devils fabricated against the kingdom of Solomon. And Solomon disbelieved not, but the devils disbelieved, teaching men enchantment. And it was not revealed to the two angels in Babel, Harut and Marut, nor did they teach it to anyone, so that they should have said, "We are only a trial, so disbelieve not." But they learn from these two that by which they make a distinction between a man and his wife. And they cannot hurt with it anyone except with Allah's permission. And they learn that which harms them and profits them not. And certainly they know that he who buys it has no share of good in the hereafter. And surely evil is the price for which they have sold their souls, did they but know. So, by sort of summarizing the message of this verse of the Holy Quran, what I want to point out is that rather than look at the Holy Quran, try and understand its meaning and, more importantly, its message that it's trying to convey to humanity. What we've done is we've turned it into a kind of book of magic potions and things. And the Holy Quran starts off, and we know that Muslims believe that prophets went to all the nations, whether it's Aborigines of Australia or Red Indians of United States or whoever they are. Now, one or two of those nations lived in Arabia. Some people of Arabia had themselves embraced Christianity or Judaism. We know that when the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received his first revelation, Hazrat Khadija, his wife, took him to her cousin. And he heard the whole thing, and he explained to the Holy Quran that it, what he experienced was an angel that had been sent to deliver the message to previous prophets and so on. So, and in fact, it is said that this person had also translated some of the Old Testament from Hebrew or whatever language it was in at the time, the copy that he had, into Arabic, portions of it, perhaps not all of it. And so, that means that there were Christians there, there were Jews there, other Arabs who worshipped idols. Maybe some had embraced the religion of Iran. So, but all these people, God is saying that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought a message which authenticated that part of the scripture that was God's revelation. But rather than accept the fact that, some of it wasn't revealed by God, those people chose to ignore God's commands, God's message. And as we know, for example, most people in Pakistan, their ancestors at some stage were probably Hindus. And they embraced Islam for one reason or another. Now, although they recited the Shahada and accepted the formal sort of rituals of Islam, such as namaz and salat and Ramadan and so on, some things related to the moral values, spiritual values, they still retained. They still retain to this day. Superstition. For example, this person is clean and this is unclean. Don't sit with him because he does cleaning. And that kind of thing. There's no concept of that in Islam. After all, before the advent of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and after the advent of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, when most of Arabia had embraced Islam, who cleaned toilets? There wasn't some special class. But nowadays people say, oh, these people, they clean bathrooms. So what? I remember a time when the people who clean toilets and so on decided to go on strike because of the humiliating treatment they were receiving from people. And within 5 or 6 days, everyone was literally kissing their feet, asking them to come back to work. Suddenly the idea of that, there are untouchables and this and that, just disappeared. Because filth was piling up in homes and it was becoming a serious danger to public health. And then the Holy Quran goes on and he gives the example of the Holy Prophet Solomon, alayhi salam. And God says that, the Old Testament says that because he had wives who weren't Jewish, and they demanded that Solomon build temples to their gods in addition to Yahweh or Jehovah, then Prophet Solomon did. And he went in and he made sacrifices there and he worshipped their gods, etc. But the Holy Quran says that Solomon didn't do this. This is a fabrication. This is a lie made up against him that he did so. And there are other stories that, he went and he worshipped, and these gods gave him power over birds and beasts and so on, and he could summon them and talk to them, and all this kind of thing. But the Holy Quran says that Solomon didn't say these things, he didn't do these things, but the devils, evildoers, did this. They said, these false gods would teach Solomon magic incantations which he would write, and all these were found under his throne, buried in the ground after he had died. And the Quran is clearing the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam from all these charges and saying, no, this is all your fabrication. And then the Quran starts talking about, this idea that there are two angels who teach people evil, and they're hanging upside down in Babylon. And when people go to them, they warn people, if you listen to us, you'll become kafirs, heretics. But people still go and learn these magic incantations from them and so on. The Quran is saying all this is nonsense, it's rubbish. And it's clearing Solomon of all these charges. And then, if you read Ruhul Mani, it rejects this idea. If you read Tafsir ibn Kasir by Imam Ibn Kasir Rahmatullah, that rejects it and says it's complete fabrication. Nothing in Islam to justify this. And yet, we believe these fairy tales rather than looking at the message. That what people do is to introduce and interpolate ideas into religion, and then they say, well, this is what the Revelation says. Revelation doesn't say that. There are many examples. A lot of the Christian beliefs, like Christmas being the day when Jesus was born, and Jesus is divinity, his sonship of God, and all this kind of thing. All these things, they come from Romans and Greeks. They believed in these things. They had many gods who were children, and they fought wars, and they were jealous of each other, and all this came into Christianity. But this is a warning for Muslims not to do the same thing. And it's a warning to say that if you do that, then you will behave in exactly the same way as Jews did, and that is that you will ignore the message of the Holy Quran, and you will start believing these things. And then the Holy Quran goes to these magic incantations and ta'weezes and amulets and all this kind of thing that people say, oh, your wife is upset with you. Don't ask what I've done to upset you. Just take this ta'weez and, dissolve it in water and give it to her, and, she'll start to love you again. Or if you don't have children, or if you don't have a son, here's this magic incantation, you recite that, and a son will be born, and thousands of other things. Your enemies will be destroyed and whatever. And this verse here, says that it's all heresy. It's all heresy. And such people, what they're doing is they're creating friction between a husband and wife. They're creating friction between husband and wife. And in fact, really, you could say that they're creating friction between people. And God says that, these things can't profit you. You can't recite some incantation and blow in the direction of someone you dislike, and the man is going to lose all his property or drop dead or whatever. And God says, if anything happens, it's by my permission, not through those incantations and formulas and things that people say that you should recite. I mean, just think about this. Someone dislikes me and they go to a peer and they get this something written on a piece of paper which they recite and blow in my direction. And I do exactly the same thing. Go to some other peer and get some incantation and I learn it by heart and I recite it and blow it in their direction. Which one is going to work? Which one? Two people are doing exactly the same thing. And God says, this is all nonsense. It's not your magic potions that are sort of creating disharmony between people. If any harm comes to anyone, it is because I permitted it. Not because of these magic things that people decide to blow at others. And God says that the result is that you get trapped by these things. And rather than doing something positive that is going to make some difference, from which you will gain something morally or spiritually or in some way, you've sold your soul to the devil for this thing. Because you start to depend so much on this magic that you stop doing any good for others. And this is what we do, because that's the easy way. To do good for others is hard. You have to make sacrifices. You have to sacrifice your time. You have to sacrifice your money. Isn't it easy just to go to someone, pay them, I don't know, £100 or whatever it is. I have no idea how much it is. I guess the cost depends on the problem you're trying to solve or to create. But the point is, it takes away your resolve. Say what you should have in your heart is that I'm going to struggle and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to make sacrifices for humanity, and through that I will achieve something in this life and in the hereafter. But this shortcut that you try, God is saying all you've done is you've sold your soul to the devil. It's not going to benefit you in any way. It's like, people, one of the rituals after someone dies is that people gather together and they recite the Holy Quran. Fine, okay. Nothing wrong with that. But then someone comes in and says, how many Qurans were recited? And sometimes people haven't even recited any or the number that they say. And this leader then, keeps writing these down and then says, oh, all right, felicitations, Mubarak, Mubarak. 500 Qurans have been recited. Now let me transfer the reward for the recitation of 500 Qurans from you lot to the deceased. Or another thing, an even easier one I saw today. I think it was on TikTok or something. And that was that all you have to do is you have to fast for 2 days, 9th and 10th of Muharram. And what will happen? All your sins for the past 2 years will be forgiven. And this is why the Holy Quran says that these shortcuts are so dangerous. And that in the hereafter, you will not earn anything. I mean, can you imagine a drug smuggler who destroys lives, meticulously fasts on 9th of Muharram and 10th of Muharram, and all his sins for the last 2 years are forgiven? Or a pedophile who destroys people's lives by molesting children. He fasts on the 9th and 10th of Muharram, and all his sins for the last 2 years are forgiven. And this is the danger the Quran is trying to point to. That you will get into this, what you would think is the easy way of entering heaven. But if you want to go to heaven, you have to devote and dedicate yourself to hard work and sacrifice. There is no other way. And this is what Quran's warning is. But what people have done, they've taken it as a justification that the Holy Quran is denouncing something. People have taken it to mean that no, it's approving it. And this is why the Holy Quran keeps on saying, read it, understand it, read it, reflect upon it, read it, reflect upon it, and so on. With that, I take my leave of you. Inshallah, we'll meet again tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.